So I've had a lot of people ask me what kind of camera I've been using on my vlogs and stuff like that. Now I was using a GoPro before, but now I got given this camera right here, and it's the HDR-cx220 by Sony. Now of course there's way more to it than just that. I actually hooked up a whole bunch of goodies to it, and I'm gonna go over those in just a minute, but I'm gonna tell you guys what I like about this camera and what I don't like about this camera. So one of my favorite things about this camera that makes it really great for vlogging or anybody that's on YouTube that's gonna be doing traveling on the road or anything like that is that there's no separate charger for this camera. It actually just has a simple USB cord that pops out of the little strap that holds your hand on the camera whenever you're holding the camera, and you can plug it into anything you want. You can plug it into your computer, you can probably plug it into the back of some TVs as well. Okay, my next favorite thing about this camera is that all you have to do to turn it on is actually just flop open the screen. That's it. So if you're a YouTuber and you're trying to get stuff for vlogs and you're with your friends and something funny is about to happen, all you have to do is just flop open the screen. And that's it. It's on, it's ready to go, it's ready to record. So another thing I really like about this camera is that there's a simple little photo button right on top of the camera, and you can just take a photo whenever you want. Now, it doesn't take a photo in all HD modes, so you can't necessarily take a photo while you're recording, but you can take a photo if you're just kind of like walking around the room, something funny happens, or if all of a sudden you see an opportunity to take a cool picture for a thumbnail. Now another thing that's really handy about this camera is that it has a built-in lens cap. Now to some that may seem silly. Most of us in the DSLR world and people that film on cameras like the one I'm filming on right now really don't even think about a built-in lens cap. You always have to keep it in your pocket like I am right now. So except for when it comes to selecting which HDMI resolution you're actually shooting in on this camera, some of the language that they use for the HDMI resolution that the camera is shooting in it's very confusing. Other than that, the menus are very easy to navigate. There's actually a little joystick on this camera on the actual screen, and it moves up and down, back and forth, and you push it to select things, and really that's it. There's a play button as well, but that's all. Now the first thing that I don't like about this camera, it seems kind of silly because this camera really isn't priced that high, so it really doesn't need to have this because it's not really for professionals per se, and it's not for making any kind of like really big productions or anything like that, so you don't necessarily need it. But it doesn't have an external mic jack, so you can't plug in an external mic to this camera. Now if you're filming vlogs and stuff like that for YouTube, you don't necessarily need an external mic, because if you have an external mic on your camera, if you're walking through a grocery store and you're recording yourself with a camera that has a mic on it, especially like the very camera that I'm recording on right now, people always look at you really weird when you have a microphone on your camera, and they start taking what you're filming a little bit more serious. Whereas if you just have a normal little camcorder and someone sees you filming, you can just say it's for a college project. Now the next thing I don't like about this camera is that the image stabilization sometimes, it takes over whenever you have it on a tripod, or if you set it down in the gym or something like that on a solid object. The image stabilization will kind of create like a movement, and it's kind of weird. You can turn off the image stabilization, but if you're in the middle of doing something for a vlog, you don't want to necessarily have to go through a bunch of menus real quick and do that. So that's really a small complaint, and if you're filming vlogs, I really don't feel like it's that big of a deal because it's really just YouTube and you're not watching it on a big screen. Now the next thing I don't like about this camera is that whenever you zoom this thing, if you zoom it all the way in or if you zoom it to any point at all, when you close the camera and turn it off, if you didn't zoom it all the way back out, you'll turn the camera back on and all of a sudden it's zoomed wherever you had it zoomed before. It didn't zoom out for you. So if you're in like if you're in tight quarters like a car or something like that, a really small room, and you're trying to film a vlog really fast and something's happening, you can't just turn the camera on and expect it to be wide angle. You actually have to zoom it back out. And again, this is just a first world problem. All right, now for all the little goodies that I put on this thing. Now the first thing that I put on this camera is an LED panel light. I call it a hot shoe LED panel light. You can look it up online. It's called the CN160, and whenever you type in CN160 on Google Shopping or anything like that, you're gonna pull up a whole bunch of different versions of this light. I say look at them all, see what fits your application better. And also, the other cool thing about this light is that when you take out these batteries in the back, if you buy the correct light, if you happen to buy this camera, you can use a Sony battery in this thing. So if you have a spare battery for this camera, you can actually use it in your LED panel light. It's pretty sweet. Now the next thing that I really like about this light is that it's actually an adjustable LED light. So that means that you can go all the way to super blasting bright light, all the way down to just barely lit at all. So sometimes you just want just a small soft light in a room to create just a really neat feeling. Now the next thing I really love about this thing is that it has a simple little button on the back of it, and you just push it and there's 4 little LED indicator lights that tell you how much battery life you have left. Now I know it's just 4 little indicator lights and that's not very precise, but at least you have some kind of idea as to how much battery life you have left. Now another great thing about this light is that it comes with 2 little filters. Now one of them is for making it super cold, which I just threw away. And then there's another filter that actually has kind of an orange hue to it, so it makes the light just a little bit more warm. And combined with the white LEDs with the orange light, it actually produces like a really nice orange light that's almost like a natural light bulb. I really like it. Now my next item is the actual thing that you see me holding on to right here. This is called, what I call it personally, is a side hot shoe mount. Now what it's really for is it's for photographers or other videographers, and you put your camera right here, and then you put a flash right here, so that way when you light your subject, the light's off to the side, and it gives you a little bit more of like a nice portrait lighting that puts your light to the side of the face and then creates nice little shadows on this side, instead of having that really strange look where there's a light on top of the camera and it creates that really weird blasted out look. I really don't like that. I think it looks super cheesy. Now the other nice thing about this little hot shoe mount is that it actually has a nice little rubber handle that you can hold this entire rig by, and what that does is it makes it so it's almost like, not necessarily a steady cam per se, but it makes it so that things are a lot more stable because it acts as a counterweight. There's a light over here and a camera over here, so all of a sudden you can balance things really, really nicely. So in the description there will be links to all of these fun little toys. Also, I'm going to put a couple little Easter eggs for you guys, such as the little suction cup mount that I used with this little camera for my last YouTube video where I talked about what YouTube channels are my favorite channels. That's it for this one, guys. If you guys ever have any questions, you just write them right down there in the comments, baby girl.